So here lately with my reviews for bad movies, I've been getting a little more creative and having a little more fun with them, mainly just to make up for the lost time they've caused me. But in doing this, I've found out why so many people have, well, I don't know, not that many people, but some people out there have made careers out of just reviewing bad movies and making jokes about them. Um, and I think there's a good chance that if as long as I continue doing this, I might actually be more well known for the bad movie reviews than for the straight reviews where I'm, talking about movies that I actually recommend, which would be okay. At least I would be, known for something. Um, but at the same time, I do hope that people watch the recommended reviews. I think it's important that they know about some of the better movies out there. Still, before this happens, supposing that it even happens at all, I would like to honor some of the bad movie reviewers who I've been watching throughout the past couple years who have kind of inspired me to, you know, go this route. And it's going to be a top five list, but first off, I'd like to give an honorable mention to the YouTube channel Shitcase Cinema. Um, Out of all of these who are going to be featured on the list, I've actually been watching his channel for the longest time. The only reason that he didn't make the top five is because I thought that his older videos were a lot funnier. Honestly, I still like him. I still enjoy watching his reviews. He's a pretty charming guy, but uh, I don't know. It's been a really long time since he made me laugh. And as far as recommended material goes, two of my favorite videos that he's done were his reviews for The Running Man and for Demonic Toys, if you want to check that out. So for number five, the only uh, there are just a couple of reasons why this guy is so low on the list. For one thing, he doesn't do movie reviews that often. His movie discussions are usually posted months apart from each other. And for another thing, he's not really, first and foremost, a reviewer. He uh, basically just does dumb comedy videos. And even his movie discussions are dumb comedy, but they are technically reviews and they are technically funny as hell. And I'm talking about Lyle McDouchebag and his series called Spoilers Ahead. As you can guess by the name of this series, he, details the entire plots of these movies that he thinks are really dumb and just points out every single thing about them that he finds to be really fucking dumb. And that's like his favorite phrase to use, fucking dumb. You'll hear him say it like five times in each video. And it's not like he's trying to come off as some kind of intellectual either. He's not like a snobby film critic or anything like that. He even makes fun of the fact that he watches dumb movies and then makes these long ass videos where he talks about dumb movies. Um, and I love the format that he's done it in. Like with the older reviews, basically you'll just see this still image of some kind of crude drawing that he did, which is usually better than anything I've drawn, and you'll just hear him ranting and raving about this movie. And the drawings are still pretty funny, and again, just the way that he talks about the movies is entertaining as hell. But for some of the more recent ones that he's done, like for Man of Steel and The Hunger Games, he's done like full slideshows so that you can get more visual humor out of them. And I mean, it's cool if you like The Hunger Games and Man of Steel. I happen to love those movies as well. Obviously, Lyle doesn't. And just because I disagree with him doesn't really make those videos any less hilarious. I freaking love them. And as far as like his older videos go, where you're just looking at a still image the whole time, the one that I would recommend the most is his Prometheus review. And there was even one thing he did that kind of inspired one of my jokes. Like when I was doing that Zombie Abomination review, and I got all worked up over the fact that they were showing such an excessive amount of piss in that movie. Um, I can't remember for the life of me which review this was, and for the record, there aren't that many reviews that he's done, so it's not like it's going to take you all night to find out. But there was one, uh, spoilers ahead video where he just got so pissed off about something that happened in a movie that he went off mic, and you could just hear this muffled screaming in the background like and I just thought that was just about the funniest fucking thing in the world. So definitely comes recommended. Once again, his channel is called Lyle McDouchebag, and he also has a channel called Lyle Sucks, which features even dumber comedy than he has on his main channel, but it's still pretty funny. Number 4 on my list is easily one of the more well known, and that would be the Cinema Snob. Basically, what this guy does, if you haven't heard of him before, is he poses as kind of a snobby film critic, almost like I did in my art house review, but I wasn't really trying to channel him in that. He doesn't use like a shitty British accent or anything like that. But again, he just talks as if he's this really snooty film critic, and like mainly he just talks about really sleazy movies that feature a lot of violence or a lot of sexuality in them. He's even reviewed quite a few pornographic films on his channel, and they're obviously not the type of films that most film critics would even take a second glance at, but he'll just look at some of the shittiest movies ever made. Although he has also watched some pretty good movies, like he did a review for Shock Treatment, which is a movie that he likes, and even in that video, he was very genuine about how much he liked it, but he was still able to throw around some pretty good jokes in there. And, he also liked the movie Suspiria, which I personally didn't care for. I find it kind of overrated, but again, he was able to keep up the humor in that video with how he reacted to some of the horror scenes. And, it's just very dry, sarcastic humor, and I love it. His channel, his he used to be on the channel League of Super Critics along with the Nostalgia Critic and people like that. But for some reason that channel went down, and he's now on a new one called Stoned Gremlin Productions, which I'm gonna put a link to in the description for this video, as well as all of the other channels that I'm going to talk about. Number 3 on my list is easily the most underrated out of these 5, and that would be Worst Movies on Netflix. And the setup for this channel is pretty simple. Just as I sit here most of the time just talking about movies, these are two guys who sit there talking about movies, and the title is pretty self-explanatory. They talk about shitty movies that they find on Netflix. Although they're not always like horrible movies, sometimes they'll talk about a movie they like, such as Foxy Brown or Ricky-O, or they'll talk about, again, it's a movie they like, but they've also talked about movies that are so bad they're good, like Troll 2. But most of the time, it's just really awful movies that they hate, and it's actually pretty hilarious to see how pissed off they get at these movies. I would say the most anger that I've seen out of at least one of them was for one of their older reviews for a movie called Creature. And they've also recently started a series called Worst Movies on YouTube, which is pretty fun. And usually their videos last for a pretty long time too, as they get into these discussions. They usually last for over 10 minutes. I think the longest I've seen was a video that ran for about 35 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that was their Sharknado review. But I think the thing that keeps me watching them is just how natural they are. There's really nothing forced about their humor, and they're often pretty crude about it. They say, I mean, in each video, they'll say the word fuck at least a dozen times, but again, it's just them being natural and being themselves. Clearly, they don't give a shit what people think about them. They just kind of have that if you don't like me, then fuck you kind of attitude. And I have to respect that. And again, they're pretty hilarious. So if they sound like something that would be up your alley, if you don't mind excessive swearing, then check them out. Number two on my list is definitely the least comedic choice. Although he still drops a lot of jokes in his reviews, and he can be pretty funny, but for the most part, he's pretty straightforward, and he just does these really in-depth kind of movie reviews. And I'm talking about the channel Good Bad Flicks. Um, and I guess it can be argued that the movies he reviews aren't necessarily bad. It's just a matter of opinion. He does have his standards with movies, like he hates movie 43 and Battlefield Earth because obviously, but for the most part, he talks about movies that are disliked by the general public. And some of the films he's talked about are ones that I like, such as Man of Steel or Puppet Master. But he's also talked about a few that I don't like Howard the Duck or Texas Chainsaw 3D. I thought that those were just horrendous films, but I was still genuinely interested in hearing what he had to say about them because he talks about these movies in such an intelligent and in-depth manner, and he's even tempted me to go back and watch these movies despite how shitty they are in my opinion. And I haven't actually done that, for the record, but it's clear that he has a real passion for these films, and when he stands up for them, again, he's very informed about it. And I mean, there's really not much else to say about him. He has been doing kind of the same thing that I've been doing, where he recently started uh, doing more current film reviews. I I'm losing my ability to talk here. I haven't gotten much sleep lately, for the record. And you know, for the record, not all of his current reviews are for ones that he likes. Like, he just did a review for Sinister 2, which he did not like, so don't just see that in your feed and be like, well, I'm going to add that to my watch list. Listen to the guy, because, again, he is an interesting guy to listen to. Check him out. So I think that number one is a pretty obvious choice. If you know anything about bad movie reviewers, once you saw the title of this video, I'm sure that you knew that he was going to be somewhere on the list. And number one would be Doug Walker, aka the Nostalgia Critic. And just like the Cinema Snob, he has a new channel which is called Channel Awesome. That's going to be linked in the description, as well as all of the others. And I think it's pretty I think it's a pretty accurate description, because the guy does some really awesome videos. I just love the energy that he has when he does these comedic bad movie reviews. Like, I'm not gonna try to steal any of his shtick by any means, but he is the type of comedic reviewer who I aspire to be. Like, it would be awesome if I could be on that level at some point. Um, and there was one gag that he did that kind of inspired something that I did in one of my videos, like when I was doing that Parasite review and I smashed the DVD with a hammer at the end. He does something pretty similar at the end of his review for The Neverending Story 3, Escape from Fantasia, only what I did was pretty underwhelming in comparison. Like, he goes so far as to sexually assault the DVD and everything. And, I mean, obviously, he's not being completely real about it when he's doing the comedy reviews. Like, the nostalgia critic is a character that this guy made who's more passionate and more insane and in some ways less intelligent than the actual person that he is. Um, and when he's doing a straight review, I enjoy those videos just as well. Like, I love the very in-depth discussions that he does on movies. He did one video on Where the Wild Things Are a while back, and he pointed out so many aspects of that film that I had never noticed. And I mean, obviously, it's his own interpretation of the movie, but still, the way that he's able to look at these movies and kind of dissect them just blows my mind. And um, I don't always agree with him, you know. Just like all of the other reviewers on this list, he's reviewed some movies that I happen to like. I mean, I've already mentioned this movie twice, but he did a review for Man of Steel where he bashed the hell out of it, and I like that movie. He also did a review for Good Burger, which is more of a guilty pleasure for me, but that still counts as a movie that I like. Um, but there have been a few times where I've agreed with him. Like, he did a bad movie review for Signs, which is a film that I find to be totally overrated. And he did a whole video on movies that everyone else likes that he doesn't. And one of the ones that he mentioned on there was Gladiator. And I was like, thank you. Finally, someone else out there doesn't like that thing. And and this is a movie that I like, and he had some pretty positive things to say about it as well. But he did like a straightforward review for Toy Story 3. Again, it's a movie that I like. I think it's awesome, but I had a very different reaction to the ending of that film than most people had. I actually thought it came off as pretty awkward. And when Doug Walker did his review for that film, he pointed out every single thing that was wrong with that ending. Just completely hit the nail on the head. So, um, there's not really a whole lot else for me to say about the guy. He's hilarious, he's intelligent. If you haven't heard of him or you haven't started watching him yet, check the guy out. Anyway, those are my top 5 bad movie reviewers. If you have any favorites that you would like to recommend, let me know what they are in the description. If you agree or disagree with any of these choices, let me know why. And I hope you all have a good one.